And welcome to VAFA Tragics. Round 7 is done and dusted, and it's time for us to sit around the table and chat about what's happened on the weekend. I'm Andrew Leonard as I welcome Brenton. Man, the St John's are going beautifully.
7 and zip, and broke the hoodoo at Eltham College, our first win at the ground since 2008, and just going along, just nicely.
You managed to sneak a goal, I see, on the score sheet as well.
I did sneak a goal in the last quarter.
Bobbing up forward, are you pushing for a bit more forward time?
Just off a wing, I was on the weekend.
Very good. Very good afternoon or evening to Marty Kelleher.
Andrew, how are you? Well?
Well, thank you. How did your under-19s go?
I did very well, yeah. We had a great win. Won by 40 points down at Parkdale. So, back on track, 5 and 2.
Michael Fitzgerald, how are you?
Very well, Andrew. Very well.
What have you enjoyed about the weekend just gone, besides an Oldsaverian win?
Well, yeah, there was that. But I mean, there are a lot of things to enjoy in all these sections of amateur footy, and looking around the scores on Saturday night and Sunday morning, and having a look at a few of the highlights on the box. It's makes for some great entertainment.
Well, some of the big highlights, I guess, was the 5-minute patch that St Bernard's opened up with against Old Carey. Fitzy, you had a look at this one. It's just phenomenal as we roll the tape on what St Bernard's did at the start of the second quarter.
Yeah, indeed. And Ben Smithwick gets the first kick, and I think they next touched the ball, Old Carey, when St Bernard's have kicked 4 goals. Remarkable performance, but the football looked good from St Bernard's, but nothing outrageous. It was just get it, kick it to a teammate, handball it, get it on, keep it moving, and Carey was nowhere to be seen.
And Brenton, I mean, St Bernard's kicked, I think, 8 goals in that quarter?
8 goals for the quarter, and they only kicked 3 more for the rest of the game. So, I don't know if they put the cue in the rack, but it was a blistering display, it really was. As Fitzy said, they really kept the ball moving and were really proactive around the footy, and they just took their chances.
So, Marty, what do we take out of this, as Glenn Cox, what would he have said to the troops when you take it in isolation? St Bernard's have blitzed it for 5 minutes, created the lead, and then Carey have won the day after from there on in?
Well, I was even going to ask the question, or I was going to state, it's almost happened far too quickly to make a change. You can't actually go in and say to everybody in the middle, tighten up, because there were 4 goals in 2 minutes. And you just have to almost say at the end of the game, boys, it's going to happen. We're going to have bad patches. You just need to somehow stem the flow. Go man on man in the middle, block it down. Because there was 2 clearances there, which you can see on the vision, and they were
just waltzed it out of the middle of the ground.
They really needed that. You're right. They really needed to lock it down in the middle. They needed repeat stoppages. They just took the ball at will out of the centre clearance, and they just going forward. They kicked something like there might have been 5 straight, something like that.
Yep.
Beaumaris and Collegians, Beaumaris had a big day, huge crowd down there at Beaumaris for their game against Collegians. They came hard and late against the Lions, who kicked 5 goals to 1 in the opening quarter, and that gave them the advantage. But Collegians also going beautifully. They've won 4 in a row.
Very professional outfit, Collegians. Very, very tough to beat. They had a good win down there last year. Bowie, Bowie was, from what I saw, played very well, but Collegians reliable, professional, very even-tempered performance, as we see most weeks from the Lions, where they don't tend to kick massive amounts of goals in bursts. They just kick them when they need to, do the right things, and they systematically pick a team apart. And they were, too much for Bowie in the end, if only by a few points.
So I was then going to ask the question, given that Bowie, like another team, are now behind the 8 ball a little bit, is it almost time for them to start throwing a couple of under-19 kids in who give you added enthusiasm, give you a bit more bounce, give you a bit more, and they just have a real thrill about playing in the seniors. Give them a couple of games, see how they go. I mean, their unders are 6 and 1 in under-19 Premier, so why not throw the kids in? Because Brenton, you made the comment last week that one of their senior older players.
Yeah. He actually had a good game, so he must have been watching.
Surely he watches.
Probably his best game for the Sharks in a while. Raf Clark, he was excellent actually throughout most of the game against Collegians. But Bowie just falling short, as we've seen in recent weeks. They're just falling short, not getting that win.
So do kids give you that added enthusiasm because they bounce back? They love the idea of being in a big game.
Yeah, they do. But enthusiasm doesn't win you games. I mean, I think what happens is that they generate the enthusiasm, and hopefully the older players are the ones being enthused and really get you over the line. But look, they've been close. They've had a couple of bad days, but they're not that far off the pace. And you have a look at their results week by week, and you think, well, you know, that they will win some games. There's no doubt about that. If they hold their standard now, they will win some games.
In William Buck Premier, though, I don't think the season's settled yet. I don't think there's a clear, maybe Trinity and St Bernard's, I don't know if they're clear on top, but I don't think the 4 is set at all.
Oh, I think that's evidence over the recent years. I wrote about that in the column this week, that if you look at it over the past 4 seasons, only once has the 4 been set at this supposed mythical round 6 mark. What seems to be the case is the bottom 2, at least one of the bottom 2 at this time of the year does go down. So that's, I guess, a worrying sign for Beaumaris and De La Salle in that regard. Let's move on to De La Salle. They hosted Uni Blackson, still can't get a win at home at the Dairy Bell. The La Sallians. Marty, the interesting one out of this game is that De La led 15 minutes into the second quarter and then kicked just 2 goals, 2 for the rest of the game.
Interesting, yeah. Look, what can I say? Either I mean, once you get momentum, you'd like to sort of think that you can keep your run going. You'd like to think that the momentum would go. You've got Blacks on the back foot. We've got a really good side in. The players were happy. Jake Williams back from Collingwood with the bye. And you think, well, we've got potentially our best player back into that group. Why don't we keep going? And to then have that, to kick 2 goals, 2 for the rest of the game. And really, you know, it wasn't as if we didn't touch the football. There was enough of the football on the vision, as you can see, going up and down the ground. It was really just that landing the killer blow. But, you know, as we're all aware, and you look at the vision, there was plenty of white bandages around. So we almost looked like the walking wounded. Oh, look,
when you're going rough, you're going rough, aren't you, Marty?
Well,
I think that's,
yeah, we are.
You know, one thing compounds another, and it hasn't been a happy time for De La, apart from the Anzac Day win at Toorak Park.
Well, no, look, you're right, and but there's almost, you've got to try and keep the faith, don't you? You've just got to try and keep the run going. You've got to try and at least generate some confidence. I think you were saying before that, you know, amateur footies are built around confidence, isn't it? You need confidence going in, saying we know we're going to win, rather than doubts in your mind as you turn up on a Saturday.
If you have doubt in your mind on a Saturday, you're not going to win at all.
Right.
No.
Well, we've seen 3, and perhaps you want to talk about this a little bit. We've seen the streaks, haven't we?
Yeah.
Uni Blues win the first 3, lose the next 4. Scotch, same thing.
Yep.
And Collegians lost the first 3.
Got 4 in a row.
Won 4 in a row. So
and Blacks lost 4, won 3. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's all about getting momentum, and winning form's good form. You take it ahead the next week. You know, unless you run into a real roadblock or you play really poorly, you probably win.
Well, both of the grand final sides now, as you mentioned, Collegians 4 in a row, Blacks 3 in a row, and they're building towards that 4. Zaz moved into the 4 for the first time this year as well, at the expense of Blues, who've just fallen away. Moving on to Blues, they came up against Old Trinity. And it's just becoming more and more evident now that University Blues are being hurt by their injuries. They lost Mackenzie, who won the Ian Corder Medal in the Premier B Grand Final last year with 6 goals at the start of the season with a knee injury. They've had a couple of broken ankles in Silvestro and Hart, and of course Butler and Hamstring have suffered hamstrings in the last couple of weeks. Added to that, Fitzy, they've got 4 players training at the VFL that are not on the track at Blues training week in, week out, and another player who, when he can, flies in from Sydney.
Yeah, that's right. I think that kills a team. You know, when you expect to make a couple or maybe 3 changes every week, and that's probably 3 is probably the good week, bad week demarcation. And when teams are making, you know, having to cope with injuries, unavailabilities, and then we lost 3 players to the VFL or 2 players, and half the time you don't know till the Saturday morning because they do call them up late if someone else drops out. It's a massive disadvantage, and I can see how Quinton Gleeson is, you know, probably tearing his hair out because he can't get that same team on the park every week.
Brenton, how did Old Trinity win this? They seem to be timing their runs in games beautifully.
They surely are. It was Blues last quarter again. They really fell down last quarter. I mean, their pressure and contested work was really good, but it was their work on the outside, their offensive transition. They just kept falling down and turning the footy over, and then Trinity just controlled the footy, and when they won it back, they ran and spread and just used it going forward.
They're really good, Trinity.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned we don't know if they're the real deal, and they fell away about this time last year.
Yeah.
I think they're determined not to do the same again this time round.
I don't think there's any doubt at all they're the real deal. I mean, I think they had their dress rehearsal last year. They know what they need to do. They know what they can't afford to do. And I think it'll be an entirely different situation. I mean, they'll lose games, but they will make the 4, and they will probably, at this stage, I'd say, finish top 2 and challenge for the premiership.
They've also added depth too. So when you consider that last year their under-19s won a premiership in Div 2, so those players then filter up, even if they're only, and I know that's a silly thing to say, only playing reserves, at least they're adding numbers, they're adding depth, they're adding quality, so that when they do get an inevitable injury, there's at least someone who has the ability or the potential to step up and fill the breach.
Well, that is of course the challenge for every team, particularly when you get into those winter rounds in the middle of the year. But you know, Trinity, that is probably the worry, that their 2s aren't going all that well in terms of results. Although you know, they may be playing okay, and younger players may be improving, and so not all's lost there. We'll wait and see when that occurs.
I think there's a couple of other clubs who probably would love to have those depth issues when you look at the reserve ladder and you see that, you know, Carey are one really struggling at the moment with their levels of depth. Dealer, Bow Morris, you know, not only are they filling the bottom 2 spots in the seniors, they're also filling the bottom 2 spots in the reserves.
The other game of the round, of course, was Old Zaverians and Old Scotch, and Zavs won this game, I think, in the first 20 minutes. They were just awesome. And we talk about Carey not touching the ball in that 5-minute period at the start of the second. Scotch hardly touched the ball, Fitzy, in that first 15 minutes of play. Zavs were just there and intent, and there was hardly an unpressured possession for Old Scotch when they did get their hands on it.
Yeah, Zavs were impressive in that first quarter, and I think sort of laid down the marker that they weren't going to be intimidated or bullied or run over. They threw it at Scotch, and Scotch, unfortunately for them, took a while to respond. And when they finally did, I think they worked hard to run the ball out of the back line using players like Bull and McKinley and the
Strauss as well.
Yeah, they did quite well, but then when they got it forward, they fell down. They really had no targets up there.
And I think that part of that is because they do overpossess the ball coming out of the back half. Looking at Old Scotch's statistics over the last couple of weeks, they're having a lot of possessions, but for metres gained per possession, it's terrible, in fact. And you'll see a couple of bits of vision here where they handball into as if they're going to move the ball forward, and they run into a dead end, and then they have to force a hand pass backwards. But it's not the big feedback hand pass which we see Old Trinity do so often, where it releases the player to kick out the back. It's a little hand pass, and they're just trying to hand pass their way through traffic. And by the time that's done, Zavs were able to push their numbers back, and the kick goes forward, and it's turned over.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought at one stage, and for a while watching there, that they were very conscious of Bull and McKinley, and Jamison was the other one I was trying to think of, as well as Strauss, that their only exit seemed to be through those guys.
Waiting to get those guys the ball.
And they were saying, you know, they had the ball, and instead of saying, right, I'll kick this upfield down the line, no, where's this guy or where's that guy?
Those designated kickers, let's get it into the hands of the
it seemed all very programmed, and as if there was only one way out of there. And as such, as you say, Savs just, you know, they let them run it out, and they ran it with pace and skill and handball, and then they bomb it into the forward line, out it came again.
So another issue with Scotch is, with Passador on the sidelines coaching, who's going to catch it up forward? Because if we cast our minds back over the last, say, 10 or 15 years, they've always had someone up forward who's had a lovely set of hands, could sort of run just a nice little angle to take a mark out in front. Gertzman was there for a while, then they had Mark Passador up forward, and now who's that player to replace? Because then that probably does lead to that overpossession. Well, you don't have confidence kicking it.
A big bloke up front, and Doherty was the other one, the big 99.
Yes.
That he did straighten them up, and there was a big target there. You know, they've been getting goals from Dagian, from Perry, from Watts.
Well, that's another one of their issues, and their lack of a ruckman at the moment at Old Scotch it was plain to see on the weekend. John Shaw just had a day out, just putting it down the throat of the Zaz midfielders around him. But realistically, he didn't play against an opponent all day. Perry was there for a bit rucking, but he got badly out of touch playing in the middle of the ground, so he wasn't able, when he did go forward, to get his hands on the ball either. And it's just such a confidence position playing key forward, and if you can't get your hands on the footy early because you've been thrashed in the ruck by John Shaw, who's the state ruckman, just makes for a hard day at the office.
They seem like, to me, they're a team devoid of any confidence. That's when you get those, those handballs to a stationary target, but you've got to run and spread and create. And if they haven't got that big target up forward, they're going to need to find those targets.
Which is the difference with what we saw on the vision with the St Bernards, that they were, when they gave the handball, they gave it with some width.
You've got to have some width. You have to have width on that handball.
So it goes outside, but then they were also able to get it up forward to a couple of blokes who could catch it up front.
In Premier B, it's interesting tale in Premier B. I think the bottom six is, the race to avoid relegation is just as interesting as what's happening at the top. St Kevin's continued on their merry way with a 7th straight win. But a great win for Fitzroy over St Bede's Mentone Tigers, and Mazenod in a 1-point thriller over Parkdale Vultures. So from 5th place down to 10th, 3 wins and 2 wins, all those 6. I can't see who's possibly going to go down, particularly with the way Fitzroy have improved. I thought they were struggling early, but they've really improved in the last few weeks. Yeah,
they're going well, aren't they? And Parkdale's on the improve, and they're the two holding the bottom 2 runs, and. You wouldn't want to run out of form in Premier B at this stage.
So is it persistence that gets you there? I mean, if we look at Premier A, if we look at the William Buck Premier, what you see is you don't see blowouts. Whereas in Prem B, when the top sides are winning and they're playing those bottom sides, that becomes a danger. If you get a blowout, your percentage takes an awful hammering, and that really does put you it's not just the loss of the 4 points, but it's then the addition of all that percentage. You've then somehow got to try and make up on your fellow, so we say strugglers for want of a better word.
Yeah. There's no real form line or form trend in Premier B as there is in Premier, so to speak. You're not getting clubs on a roll necessarily.
Well, other than St Kevin's.
Other than St Kevin's.
And the 2 games against St Kevin's may well decide a club's fate for the year. The idea being obviously you'd love to beat them if you can, but
limit the damage.
The way they're going, that they're going to cruise through most weeks, and limiting the damage, as you say, Andrew, is key to all this.
Now, Fitz, I'm agreeing with you about St Kevin's. However, my sources at St Kevin's have told me that they're under the pump with injuries. They're decimated with injuries. That's what they've told me. I can only go on what's been said.
Didn't they have 12 players come to the club in the pre-season that were going straight into the first 22?
That comes from one of the guys on the coaching committee. So if I do get criticised by someone, they know where to go back to get it.
They're certainly doing something right there at the TH King.
They're going, look, club transformed in many regards. In the last 4 or 5 years, club transformed. Terrific facilities at TH King now. And look, for a club that's been nomadic for so long, to have those facilities, well done to them. Well done, and which is great.
Peninsula keeps showing a lot, and they got right back into the game against Monash Blues, but couldn't get over the line. A 3-point win there to Blues, and Theory Penola, who we've mentioned a couple of times, finally lost at home after 2.5 years.
That's a big loss, and Jared Bannister is injured, so he's not playing at the moment. That's really hurting their chances. They haven't had a good probably 3 or 4 weeks at the moment, so they're struggling.
The other one I want to highlight from the round of action was Ormond. They had 11 goal kickers amongst their 11 goals, not a single multiple, and they still managed to get over the line. I don't think I've ever seen that before. It was unbelievable.
Definitely spreading it around, aren't they?
for Ormond, but Old Geelong did test them. It's time now for Good Day, Bad Day.
'Cause you had a bad day.
Mate, kick us off. Who had a good day?
Great story. Old Camberwell won by 25 points. Conversely, it's the bad day for their opponent, Pegs, who now find themselves really in a pretty dire situation. So well done to Old Camberwell, but conversely, I think Pegs would have penciled in a couple of games.
It's always great seeing the scenes at the Siren when you get your first win of the year and you've been struggling in a bit, as you can see there. Fitzy, who had a good day?
My good day goes to Mount Lilydale goal-kicking wingman Andy Rodwell, who was a star of the comp about 5 years ago, and he's playing Div 4 reserves and touched them up for 10 goals on Saturday, so well done. And the bad day, Hampton Rovers, undermanned and, as it turned out, under-goaled, beaten well by old Melburnians.
Brenton, kick us off with your good day and bad day.
Good day for me was Ajax over Old Brighton at the Beach Oval, and bad day for me, St Bede's dismal performance over Fitzroy. They got the bus over to Fitzroy. They were thinking about going down Brunswick Street after the game, and their head just wasn't in the game, and they got touched up.
Thinking about all those venues in the northern suburbs
that
St Bede's was. I'll go bad day first of all, and I think it's Aquinas in Division 3. The third place going to their game against top side Emmaus St Leo's. and the Bloods got beaten by 62 points. So a bit of a discrepancy between the top two and the rest there in Division 3, opening up with West Brunswick also undefeated. A good day. It's an unusual one, but I'd like to give some credit to the VAFA website. It finally saw its way through a Saturday night. It was a pretty good day for those that have been involved in that over the last 7 weeks.
Now, I'm not sure about that. Is self-praise?
No. Andrew pointed out that the website got itself through and he had nothing to do with it.
Fair enough.
Nothing to do with it. It's time now for Fitzy Fires on 5.
Thank you. And every week we have a look at 5 aspects of amateur football. Let's go to the videotape. Number 5. They used to teach arithmetic at schools, but apparently not anymore. Not since kids started paying more attention to Sesame Street than to their teachers. On Saturday, the De La Salle under-19 coach erred in allowing one too many players on the field in the Bella's narrow victory over Uni Blues. A count resulted and De La was wrong and Uni Blues in the right. Of course, I jumped to conclusions and I thought my fellow panellist Marty Kelleher was to blame. But no, he coaches the other De La under-19 team. So we can wait for it to happen there too. The players must be under 19 and the number of players on the field must be fewer than 19. It's all pretty simple. Number 4. There's an Australian Amateur Football Carnival coming up in July to be contested in Hobart at under 23 level. Last week, VAFA coach Andrew Buckshot Hayes released his initial squad for the trip and I was stunned to see 57 players named. Yes, 57. Gee, can we squeeze a few more in there? There were some very curious inclusions and exclusions from this squad, which I'm sure will be recast, remodelled and rejigged as the selectors finally figure out the relative merits of the many young champions playing in our competition each week. Number 3, idiots, yesterday's men, none of whom played at a high level, all shocking know-it-alls, most of them bald, in front of a camera, pontificating. No, I'm not talking about Mark Robinson and his mates. I'm talking about these guys, all standing around every week in blue shirts, yabbering over why this happened in amateur footy and whining about why this didn't. Who should worry and who shouldn't, and who's going to win the flag, and who is going to get the sack. God, can you think of anything worse? Well, if you can't, we recommend you read bigfooty.com, where the snipers fire their bullets without properly calibrated sights, with faulty ammunition, and always under the heavy cloak of anonymity. Number 2. It's appropriate of this time that we recognise Michael Hazel, the now erstwhile president of the VAFA, who for 3 years ruled the Anthony Ahmad boardroom here at Cliff Bastow House with an iron fist inside a velvet glove. Hazel has been a great contributor to the amateur game, playing at St Bede's Mentone Tigers, Old Melburnians and his original club St Mary's Salesian, where he later mentored such champions as Joey the Bench Morcello before joining the VAFA board post-retirement. The chair at the head of the table is now empty and we wish the new president well, whoever he or she may be. Number 1. From 1 Feb through to 30 June, the most important column written about football is the clearances section of vafa.com.au. And as the deadline for player movement this year inches ever closer, we notice some weird and wonderful entries. Last week, it was football troubadour Stephen Milne trying to get to Beaumaris, though tragically he still has not yet been cleared by the Bendigo League, where he's been making guest appearances for what is no doubt a very modest stipend. And if you don't agree with me, don't blame me. I just